Hi there, Peter Terrace here. I want to talk to you today about some of the wars that are happening in the world and the term just wars. That term has been thrown around a lot lately. I just want to talk about some of the wars. Now, we know that the war in Afghanistan, Israel, Ukraine, those have been major disasters that have created a lot of chaos in the world and instability in the world. Uh, but why is that? Like the US looked very weak to its neighbors, to its enemies. So I think that there was a push to make a decision to attack Venezuela, uh, depose its leader, because it was looking so weak to its enemies like China and Russia. So I think a big part of the reason to attack Venezuela at the time it did was out of pride that it was looking so weak on the world stage. And I think this is why pride is one of the seven deadly sins, is because it creates more chaos in the world. And I think we're going to see that with Venezuela. And then we have the same thing happening in Iran, where the leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei, was also killed in order to create regime change. I'm not a big fan of dictatorships or communism, or even worse, communist dictators, but I am a fan of achieving objectives that wars are supposed to achieve. So I think if the objective is to create more stability in the world, then I think what we're going to see is that Venezuela and Iran will do the complete opposite. Now, let's look at the war in Ukraine. Professor Jeffrey Sachs, he explained very well the origins of that war in Ukraine. In 2014, Viktor Yanukovych, who was the elected president of Ukraine, was deposed by the US, the CIA. They went in, they put in a puppet government led by Zelensky and removed the elected president. What has this caused? This has caused major unrest. And I'd also recommend that if you haven't watched the video with Professor Jeffrey Sachs explaining how this war occurred in the first place, I would recommend you watch it. What I'll do is I will leave the link in the description to that video so that you can watch it. I think it's very important to see how by trying to create regime change in Ukraine, they created far more chaos in the world that has led to wars. And now they've backed out of that, but now they've left the chaos behind. So the US it basically instigated this war by taking out an elected president, Viktor Yanukovych, and putting in their own puppet government, which now they are turning their back on. So this has created major, major chaos in the world. Now, yes, Venezuela is a communist cesspool where people literally are eating their dogs, and there's suffering, and there's this soul-sucking ideology of communism that is oppressing the people, that only leads to death and destruction. But now, let's consider the results of the election. According to the results, that around 52% of people voted for Nicolas Maduro, as opposed to his next competitor, who received around 43%. Now, granted, there's a lot of reports that the election was stolen, and there was Dominion voting machines that were being used to run this election. So yeah, it's very likely that there was election interference going on and cheating that was going on. Now, let's consider two things. Number one, that the George Soros didn't need to manipulate the results of the election at all. So in other words, Maduro actually got 52% of the vote. That would be the worst case scenario. So now you've removed a leader of a country where 52% of the people voted for him. Are you going to create more stability in a situation like that? No, you're going to create a lot more instability, because now you have 52% of the people that voted for him that are now going to be more dedicated to promoting their utopian socialist dream that they want in Venezuela, that they voted for. And so that's going to create a lot more instability. Now let's look at the other option. Let's say Soros saw that Nicolas Maduro was going to lose. He manipulated the results of that election through the Dominion voting machines, and it showed that he won by 53%. But let's say he only received 35% of the vote. That is still a large number of people that are now going to be very determined to receive justice for basically having their elected leader, the person that they elected, removed from office by force by the United States. Now, think, are they going to be more cooperative with American justice, or are they going to be a lot less cooperative? I think we know the answer to that. So I think if the idea of deposing Maduro was just to save face and look more powerful in the eyes of its enemies, then maybe it's done that. But look at the tragedy. They went in, they killed hundreds of Venezuelan soldiers who really, they weren't part of that. I mean, they were protecting their country, but who wouldn't? I mean, that's literally their job. So the tragedy is that they went in, they killed a lot of Venezuelans, and now they've created more instability. Now they've done this. Now I want to say that at the beginning, in communist countries, many people vote for communists because they promise free health care, free dental care, free child care, right? So a lot of people end up voting for these socialist ideologies that lead to death and destruction. And they also are promised that, hey, listen, you don't have to work. You're still going to get paid by the government. And eventually this collapses, as we've seen in Venezuela. But at the beginning, a lot of people believe in this idea, believe in these Marxist lies. And so they vote for it. It's only when things get really bad do they start, like, for example, in a place like Argentina or El Salvador, where people turn their back on these socialist Marxist ideologies and go back to a more of a free market system where people are treated with human dignity and respect. And this is what is happening in a lot of places in Europe too. People are realizing that these socialist mass immigration, open borders policies are very terrible. But let's get back to these wars that are happening around the world. And as a Canadian, I completely understand well the frustrations that people are seeing because, in our country, in Canada, the Socialist Liberal Party was running the country into the ground. And what happened? They promise free stuff and they get voted in again. So it's going to take a lot more pain on the part of that people have to feel, the citizens have to feel, to stop voting for the liberals. And that's the same thing that happens in places like Venezuela. So it is possible that 52% of the people voted for this communist dictator, Nicolas Maduro, and the Americans have removed him by force. This is going to create a lot of instability in the world. Now, they've done the same thing in Iran. They killed the Iranian leader, thinking that they want to put in their own leader. That's going to create even more instability. I would say, great, go ahead and create regime change by killing the leader of the country, if it's going to achieve anything good. But it will not. It will not achieve anything good in both Iran or Venezuela. You're now going to have a citizenry that is going to be more dedicated to pushing its ideology because someone came in by force telling them what they have to believe. And that never works. Like what Dale Carnegie says. He says the only way you can get someone to do something is if they want to do it themselves. And so it's not possible to change hearts and minds through force, regime change. It never works. So should we, as Canadians, support regime change in Venezuela? I say no, absolutely not. I think it's not going to work. Of course, it's already happened now, so it's kind of too late for that. That horse has already left the barn. In Iran, is this a good idea? No, it's a terrible idea that's going to create more instability in the world. And all we have to do is look to Ukraine to see what the U.S. idea of regime change, when they removed Viktor Yanukovych, an elected president of Ukraine, when they removed him to put in a puppet government, it created a lot of chaos in the world. The same thing is going to happen in Venezuela or in Iran. I hope I hope to God it doesn't. I hope that there was a lot of people that really want Maduro removed, and that they are going to be happy about, a free market system that comes in, which never happens overnight. It just doesn't happen like that. The people, if you want to remove communism out of the country, the people themselves have to rise up and choose it themselves. And I want to contrast what happened in, let's say, Venezuela with what happened in 2020 when the election, there was a lot of election cheating in the United States. Donald Trump, the election was stolen from Donald Trump. And of course, nobody could see that because the mainstream media hated Donald Trump. And so they were basically screaming that, and they were debunking, they were saying that they were debunking the election cheating stories, which they never did. I mean, it's very overwhelmingly shown that, yeah, there was a lot of cheating in that election, and it probably swayed the election to Joe Biden winning rather than, Donald Trump, who would have received the most votes. But what did he do? Instead of, creating a civil war, what he did was he went back, he used his Republican allies to change the federal election system to make it more secure. I think this is what is necessary in places like Iran and Venezuela. This is what is necessary to make their elections more secure. That's what we should be helping them with. As Canadians, we should be going into places like Venezuela and Iran and offering our support to make elections more secure. Saying, look, stop using the Dominion voting machines. We know these are compromised. Stop using globalists to run your elections. Use your own common sense to run elections, paper ballots, same day voting, no mail-in voting, that kind of thing. And then the elections will be secure. And then if Maduro is picked by his people, well, then so be it. We have to accept that. Just like in the same way here in Canada, when you looked at the Freedom Convoy, you would think that the whole country was against Trudeau, but actually it turns out that that same government was elected again, minus Trudeau. So, it is frustrating to watch it, and it must be frustrating to, the American leadership to watch people choosing a communist dictator that is opposing their human dignity and their freedoms. But what are you going to do? You're going to go in there and change the regime? That's a mistake. And I think this is going to result in a lot of negative consequences for the world. And, I think Canada needs to stay out of these wars. These are not just wars. They're not even close to just wars like the ones in Iran or Venezuela. We need to stay out of them. And that's it for now. Thank you so much. If you're watching this video and you enjoy what you see, I hope you consider pressing the like button below and also consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it, and it would really help me a lot. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, feel free to leave a comment in the comments below. Thank you so much.